you've changed. How do we change? Why do we change? Are you willing to change? I'm fine. Everyone else should change. That reminds me of my high school days when my mother told me I should read the self-help book, I'm okay, you're okay, which quickly translated in my mind to, I'm okay, you're a mess. Pardon the pun, but I was struck by a statement boxer Mike Tyson once made. Do you have that there, Juxta? Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. We've been punched in the face a lot lately. I'm grateful for the care with which Carol Grafford and Karen Tischler have led us through ways to deal with stress. But whatever your method has been, good or bad, you've probably and hopefully changed. I've seen people change. A college student from 25 years ago who was sentenced to a maximum security prison and is now out. She's changed. A stepdaughter who used to be a stepson. She's changed. A son who is seriously drinking for almost 20 years, who is now out of jail, sober, and actively parenting my 4-year-old granddaughter. They've changed. I've seen my partner of 17 years change. I recall a time in my life when I believed it would be a relief to not wake up in the morning and have to deal with what I had been part of creating. I've changed. We've all changed as our lives have changed. Perhaps a leopard can't change its spots, but people can change. Religious to agnostic, or non-believer to believer, drunk to sober, or sober to drunk, male to female, female to male, intolerant and judgmental to understanding, and maybe even compassionate. And sadly, the opposite. It can be good to look at ourselves as objectively as possible and contemplate who you are today based on your life experiences, and specifically, who you want to be right now during the stress we are experiencing. In the past few months, many of us have been feeling stuck. In all his wisdom, Mike Tyson is right. When you get punched in the face, your plan goes out the window. You might need to change strategies, but it's interesting that sometimes when stuck, we continue to think and do the same thing amidst all the changes in the world. And within us, there are things to which we need to hang on. Other times, that could be the wrong approach. One of the components of a listening skills training I once took was called story listening. A teaching example was of people who tell the same story over and over again like a stuck record. The lesson was, we hear their words, but not what they are saying. They haven't been heard, and maybe right now we don't even hear ourselves. We exist in a time in which it might be helpful to consider changing or adjusting our minds and hearts. Not necessarily because we are wrong. There are many things in today's world we are justifiably opinionated about. During times of stress, we need conviction. But inflexibility can lead to brokenness. And in our conviction, we could be humbly asking, are we right? Arguing about values doesn't get very far, but we can learn to move, grow, and heal together. Today, that might necessitate setting aside our conviction in order to move toward those with whom we likely don't want to move toward. Self-disclosure. The last time Carol Grafford referenced Thich Nhat Hanh, saying that when we are angry and hate, we give power to those we hate. I hate it when people say that. Change is hard work. It takes effort to move forward. The differences in religion, in how they see and experience the world, can offer insight. World religious scholar Huston Smith wrote that we Westerners see the world in dualities, good and bad, heaven, hell, God, us, self, other, I, we, male, female, life, death, temporal, eternal, sacred, secular, have, not have. That kind of thinking is ingrained to the point it seems genetic. But in Asian thought, dualism and separatism dissolve. Smith used this example. An eagle's vision from above sees the river, but it's seen as connecting the two banks rather than dividing them. Ethics, virtue, and vision are there within the religions. They try to get us to see the whole picture through which we know and what we do not know proceed together. At their best, they offer wisdom. At their worst, as we have seen numerous times in history and are seeing again now, religion can foster chaos, thus the need for change. A missionary's kid raised in China, Huston Smith sought to go as deep within many of the world's religions as he could. Bill Moyers chronicled his journey in a series called The Wisdom of Faith. At one point, Moyers said to Smith, "You've changed." To which Smith replied, "What else?" The world religion is related to the Latin word religare, which means ligament, that which holds us together. Religare means ligament, that which holds us together. Religion binds us together, which can be a good thing. For example, UUs are bound by our covenant. Perhaps you are familiar with the ancient Hebrew story of Abraham and his son Isaac, often called the binding of Isaac. The story is this: God asked for Abraham's son as an offering. The term is olah, meaning offering totally consumed in fire. Abraham saddled his donkey and, accompanied by Isaac and two servants, started on the journey toward their destination. It appears as if Abraham complies without any argument, without trying to understand. No word to anyone, including Isaac's mother, Sarah. A man well known to the founder of Unitarianism, Miguel Servetus, the Protestant reformer John Calvin saw Abraham as a holy man who could or would do no wrong, and thus faithfully and blindly obeyed God. Calvin saw Abraham as a superhuman. From a different perspective, in the context of a religious psychology, Abraham is a void human being, devoid of emotion, since one can't be human and not have conflict. Danish existentialist philosopher Søren Kierkegaard said that to Abraham and Isaac, the 3-day journey to Mount Moriah must have lasted longer than the 4,000 years separating us from that event. Kierkegaard saw Abraham as a human being who wrestled us from the event. Kierkegaard saw Abraham as a human being who wrestled with God and himself for the 3 days they walked, a supreme crisis of personal faith, a crisis that was changing him. Jewish author Elie Wiesel wrote in Messenger of God, "This is a story of anguish for all of us when we had ourselves face to face with God in our quest for purity and wholeness and meaning. The conflicts of dreams of the past and future and present, the conflict between justice and faith, between the need to obey God or rebel. It is a supremely human story. Each step is meaningful and relevant and painful." The backstory says that God rewarded Abraham and Sarah with a son who would keep the generations alive, Isaac. Some think in Abraham's binding of Isaac, we can see two Abrahams, the one at Sodom who challenges God, and the one who is willing to passively sacrifice his son. Some think in the binding of Isaac, Abraham is saying, "I want to see if you are a moral God. I want to see if you will get Isaac off the altar. I will go along with this charade silently, in conflict. You want to see my loyalty? I want to see yours as well, God. I'm putting you to the test. Engaging in the conflict at hand, knowing whatever decision is made will change life itself." One might recognize in the story a test of faith, going forward, not knowing what an outcome will be, as opposed to obedience to what one feels they know God wants them to do. Some are sure and certain, sticking to what one feels is right. For others, knowing the right thing to do is murky at best. If you believe in God, you might appreciate Martin Luther's understanding. God does not walk the 3 days for us, but with us, which can be a profoundly awakening understanding for Christians during this Holy Week. You folk might appreciate some humor in this dark story. What did God say to Abraham when he was ready to sacrifice Isaac? I was kidding. Why do you fundies take me so seriously? Or some very irreverent humor. God, Abraham, what would you give to live in Canaan? Abraham, anything. God, how about your foreskin? Abraham, what is that? The useless piece of flesh on the end of your penis. To which Sarah commented, I thought that was a man. Stress challenges us. It changes us. We live in a time in which we need to hang on to passion for all the things that have been disappeared from government documents. Justice and fairness and inclusion. Anything diverse, equal, and inclusive. That's just one example among many. But we also need to ask ourselves how we are at times in the way of constructive change. And how and when we need to find a new direction. It is a time to discern when our own rightness or righteousness can be an obstacle. There is no manual for that, just as there was no manual for Abraham to consult when faced with his crisis. Recognizing and acknowledging who and where we are is not about stasis. It's about change as we act and move through life. There is a way through crisis that involves looking deeply within ourselves and binding ourselves to others. On your journey, perhaps your own 3 days, listen to your own traditions, listen to others, going deeper and listening critically. With wisdom to hear what people are really saying based on who we truly need to be as individuals and as a community. And know that your insight today may change tomorrow. I leave you with this story from within Buddhism. The monk Ming followed Hui Neng to the new sixth patriarch, into the mountains. I've come not for your robe or bowl, monk Ming said, but for the teaching. Hui Neng said, do not think this is good. Do not think this is bad. At this moment, what is the original face of monk Ming? At once, monk Ming was greatly enlightened. His body was bathed in sweat, tears streaming from his face. Besides this secret word and secret meaning, is there anything else? The patriarch responded, what I have clarified for you is not secret. The secret is in you. And finally, this Buddhist proverb. Those who would may reach the utmost height, but they must be eager to learn. Thank you.